Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you everyone for attending and those watching on TV. Mayor's report, a little bit longer than I normally do. I just wanted to, if you're on Facebook or just conversation, everybody is extremely upset about our past utility bills. The city posted a comment, I put it on my site, and I just thought maybe not everybody's on Facebook and they might not be aware. It's just trying to give you an explanation of why the bills were so high. You know, the bill reflects the period of January to February, which was cold and a wet month, causing higher consumption than normal. But please be reminded that starting August 1st, 2021, 11 cents were added to the natural gas rates to offset the costs incurred during the polar vortex from last winter. To ease the burden on the customers, the city of Herman opted for a 5-year interest-free loan from the state of Missouri to pay off those costs up front, rather than add a large amount to the customer's utility bill like a one-time high bill. This would have added hundreds of dollars to the customer's bills for that month. So the loan payoff, the cost from the polar vortex was in the amount of $561,815.91. The city is required by the loan agreement with the state to impose this increased rate to pay for that loan. And also for the natural gas, it should just be noted that the natural gas costs are higher nationally right now. We understand the concerns and yeah, it is what it is. So I just wanted to pass that on to the people that may not have an opportunity to read that. So, and speaking of gas, there was an incident. We had a contractor working on the gas line down off of Gutenberg in the creek there. There was an incident with that this last week. And when the Public Works Director gives his report, he will explain that a little bit more. The little bit of good news is we found out that the legislation advocacy have efforts for Amtrak Missouri River Runner. This is paying off because the House of Representatives Appropriations Committee has put a full funding for both trains for all 12 months for the fiscal year of 23 budget. So hopefully this will pass through the House budget, then the Senate budget. That's exciting news and a huge relief because we're only having one train a day now. We'll continue to work for fiscal year 22 funding for April, May, and June. We're working on an Amtrak day at the Capitol around March 22nd. A little bit other good news for those that are complaining about our streets. This budget year, Washington Street from 6th through 10th Street will have new curb and guttering and will be repaved. So that one's been a headache for some time, so it's on the budget for this year, so it should be taken care of. And that's all I have. City Administrator report.
Yeah, and just to follow further on the streets is that we do have our whole street plan for the remainder of this year and our proposed plan for next year, of course, subject to the alderman's approval. But the rest of the plan for the remainder of the year includes curb and gutter for several of these streets here. We're going to do curb and gutter all at the same time because it's cheaper to do it all at once. And that's going to be curb and gutter on Gaethie and 13th, 4th Street from Gutenberg to Schiller, 7th Street from Washington to Gaethie, and 7th Street from Gaethie to Jefferson. And then following up the following year, actually doing the asphalt. So for the remainder of this year, that's going to take all the cash we have on hand and plus our first tranche of ARPA funds for the curb and gutter, which is stormwater. So, as I was telling you last week, it's very strategic how we have to plan our street projects because we're on the pay-as-you-go plan. So we have projects, so we have to make sure we have the funds accumulated in order to pay for them when that project is done. So it's a little tricky, but I think we have a good plan. Jesse and the engineers and Todd and I have been working on that. And like I said, they have a proposed plan for next year, which you guys will be getting very soon. Sales tax for this month was, we've been having some fairly, decent increases over the prior year. This month's deposits were only 3% over the same period last year, but that still leaves us at a 17% increase year to date over last year. I wanted to note that Landmarks meeting was Tuesday, and I know a lot of people had interest in the building at 208 and 210 Schiller Street. And yes, Brian Jett, who had been the successful bidder, and Corey, didn't he say he was closing this week on the property?
I think April.
April?
Beginning of
Okay.
April.
He came before the Landmarks Commission just to allay anybody's concerns about any rumors about demoing the building or anything. They're very excited to restore the building. And he's done Lois, I believe, has helped him do some research at the Archive Center and got some old photos and plans for retail and lodging, which is a great use for it right there on Schiller Street. So they're excited to get that back to historically accurate. If you'll notice on your agenda, we had talked at the last meeting about Crystal Lane and the Pedal Pub that should come back to this meeting. We've been emailing back and forth and with Chief Walker, and he's been getting her some information from the state. The state didn't think that it would be that it should be licensed for the state highways. They wouldn't be able to travel on state highways. That it could cut across state highways, but it couldn't actually travel. So that would be First Street and of course 19/Market Street. So anyway, I believe she is going to continue doing some research and possibly come back at a later date. Couple little minor housekeeping items. Street sweeping resumes on March 21st through October, so check out the signs on your street. And I know some people, especially now that people are out walking and stuff, are noticing that our beautifully paved Mozart Street has a very steep drop off because we got 3 nice inches of fresh asphalt on there. The street and park department will be putting dirt around that to level that out so that's not such a steep and dangerous drop off. So they'll be doing that shortly. I guess what I wanted to mention primarily was to give everybody an update. At the last meeting, Sheriff Eiler was here to discuss the law enforcement tax, which is on the April 5th ballot. And the alderman and we asked him 3 or 4 questions that he then referred us to the county commission to have answered. So that is why we went up there Thursday to their meeting. And just for the point of having it entered into the public record, just for future reference. And so the way I approached it, as you all know, and the mayor had asked me to speak on behalf of the city. Really what I think it is that, obviously we were encouraging this sort of collaborative effort, right, where all the local law enforcement agencies could share this tax and campaign together. So obviously we weren't super happy with the allocation of funds, but I think it's even greater than that. And the point that I was really trying to make is that the county could not see our perspective because the way they saw it is that they were giving us free money. And why weren't we happy about that, and it looked like we were trying to be greedy. So I think what I was trying to express is that really, although we're grateful for that, there's an unintended consequence from that. And that is that actually what that will do is it will hinder and limit the city to that level of funding and that source of funding for a very long time. that percentage, remember, was 9,000, it's 9% of $1 million that they were anticipating getting. And so that 9%, could freeze at that amount. And what we also discovered, because they could put a not to exceed clause in this intergovernmental agreement that we're supposed to sign, which we've never seen and won't see until after it passes. So, there were some issues there, and we, obviously, if the county would pass their own tax, instead of the city ever passing a separate one for our own law enforcement would be improbable, at best. So it's very important that if we would do this, that the county could somehow assure us that we would get that money every year, but they can't really do that because they didn't put it in the ballot language. And I think that was one of the main questions we asked the county was, we know that the ballot heading has to say that it's a county tax, but there could have been an explanatory statement saying that they're going to share it with the cities. And the ballot is more legally binding than, the intergovernmental agreement or the order that the county has. And so we even had quotes from their attorney from their own minutes saying that there could have been this explanatory statement saying that it's going to be shared with the cities. And so that was one of our main questions was, why doesn't the ballot language say anything about sharing it with the cities when the sheriff is out campaigning? Honestly, I know his intentions are to share it with us, but when you go in and read the ballot, it doesn't say anything about sharing it with the cities. So at best, it's confusing and vague, and I think it would confuse the voters. And to the cities, it doesn't really give us any legal assurance that going forward, that future commissions from years to come wouldn't have to honor that because it's not in the ballot language itself. So that was one of the issues. They didn't really give us an answer. They, just were deferring that to their city attorney. But again, we had quotes saying that from their attorney saying that they could. So the other thing was, of course, this, the allocation we'd like to see based on population, which would be a 60-40 split instead of a 75-25 split. The intergovernmental agreement that we have to sign that won't get to see. They just said that didn't really want to spend the money to have the attorney do it until after they knew it was going to pass. And of course, if there was an intergovernmental agreement, we wouldn't be happy with a not to exceed clause in it, meaning that if that revenue ever grew from $1 million to $1.5 million or something, we want to keep our percentage going up. We don't want it to be capped at 92.5, like it would at 9%. So we asked them about, those needing some sort of assurance. And, what came out through the discussion and some of Alderman Faber's questions were that it truly is a county tax. And the county commission can allocate it, year to year as they see fit. So, that leaves the cities in a little bit of a vulnerable position.
A little bit?
So yes, the city's hesitation in supporting it, wasn't about us being greedy, but it's simply that we want to ensure that the citizens of Mormon are being treated fairly and are always going to be assured that they're getting what they're paying for. And so I tried to emphasize the point that it was, really so important to get it right now on the front end because we're likely to be subject to that funding level that would limit us for many years to come. So, for what it was worth, we got our concerns on the public record, and I think that's, did I summarize everything? Did I miss anything major? Those of you who were there? Okay. I think that concludes my report.
Sure you're done.
I'm done.
All right, Public Works Director, Jesse.
The street department has just finished up with what they really hope is the last snow of the year. They just looked and they got about 100 tons of salt left on hand. So that they'll only have to buy hopefully about 100 tons next year. Right now they're running around with the street sweeper. You might see them, they're trying to clean up all the cinders from this winter. As Trish said, they're going to start street sweeping March 21st. Right now they're servicing mowers, getting ready for grass cutting season. They've been out patching some streets in the warmer weather. Todd's been finalizing the plans for Washington Street. Have a meeting Wednesday with the engineers. We should have bid dates after that to kind of find out when that's gonna get to rolling. The Parks Department's been painting the picnic tables that were built earlier this winter. Getting some equipment and parts for the pool, getting that ready for the pool season. It's gonna be here before we know it, I guess. Planning some tree maintenance with the warmer weather as well. They've got some ash trees that have died off, like all the ashes are starting to do, so probably a couple of removals there, and we'll try to get some new trees planted in their place. And then they are also getting ready for the grass mowing season. The gas department, they had to do a bunch of relights in the industrial park. That was about the only part of Herman that was affected by the gas leak. I'll be kind of brief on this. If you guys have any questions, you guys are obviously welcome to ask. Basically what we had for that gas leak was an excavator was climbing the bank as part of that bank stabilization project. And as they were climbing the bank, the machine slid down into the creek bed and shoved a rock that was, I don't know, the size of like a small cooler, I guess, and shoved that rock through the pipe. We had it shut down in, I'm gonna say 5 to 10 minutes is a fair timeline probably. Got it shut down, got the valve station for New Haven shut down and kind of isolated that area. Crews worked around the clock until it was fixed that morning and that following morning. And then obviously, as I said, the gas department had to go around and relight all of our customers that were out. Are there any questions on that subject?
And they're still just working right now?
Yeah, right now they're just working to do the original project. It was why they were here, and so far that's going pretty swimmingly. They actually decided, they changed some of their specs on the job, which that's all part of what they decided to do on their costs, but they didn't realize, and none of us did, how shallow that actually was on the opposite bank. And so they actually created a new driveway into the creek from the other side as opposed to driving over just in case there's more rocks in the creek bed. So we're even gonna have a little bit more bank stabilization happening than what we planned on. So that's probably a good thing.
Well, considering what could have happened, I know while those contractors worked on it, you and several of your people didn't get a lot of sleep through all this, and thank you very much for sticking with it until it got all done.
Well, I will say the contractor there, that Eating Construction, those guys were professional the whole time they were there, and none of them went home. You know, they stayed there around the clock too. It was a group effort, and they even went a little above and beyond helping us with some stuff afterwards that, you know, really wasn't their responsibility. So I appreciated them for that. And nobody got hurt. That was, obviously, talk about a gas line, nobody wants anybody hurt, nothing, caught fire, nothing blew up, everything was good. So, the best part about a bad situation, I guess. The sewer department, last week they went through the UV racks at the city lagoons. I went down there and kind of watched that whole process because I had never been part of that. They went through every rack, every light bulb, every sleeve, and made sure everything was working. We had quite a bit of stuff that was not working from last year, and we had some hard times getting some stuff last year. But everything's up and running now. All the bulbs are working, and that all has to be online by April 1st for DNR regulations, so we can meet water quality standards for the recreational boating season. The water department replaced a line on 6th Street, and they're working with the fire department to try to get a valve replaced inside the 2nd Street Fire Department along with Shawn Lane. The electric department, we installed a couple more junction boxes along Epley Fricky Drive up there in Seattle. We hope to be pulling some primary conductor later this week. And then basically we'll have one more transformer, which we have to coordinate an outage with a couple residents there. So, but we'll have that whole loop done hopefully this spring. Installed 2 new light poles down at the RV park last week, kind of just a fill-in job. We had a couple days where it was open, we didn't have a whole lot going, so we went ahead and got those light poles in. We hope to install the fixtures, energize them either late this week or early next. And we're gonna be adding some lights as time allows for fill-in work. Right now, as you guys know, everything's hard to get, and if you can get it, you really don't wanna have to pay for it. So, we're kind of looking to do some stuff that we've got on hand, you know, some pole change outs that we can take care of as time allows, and hopefully the prices come down on some of the other stuff. We've been replacing some of the streetlights in town, obviously with the time change. Those will start getting away from everybody soon. Nobody seems to notice that they're out once the daylight lasts a little longer. But if you see one, please call it in. We don't know they're out most of the time if nobody tells us. So, any
Booster pump CTO?
booster pump CTOL, we got the permit approved, I think, last week. So that should be rolling. The guys have got the garage door ordered, and they have bids out to get that installed. Because we gotta have a garage door to make this thing accessible to where if the pump goes out, they can go in and out the door. But as far as I know, Flynn's got everything they need documentation wise now, so hopefully construction can start pretty quick.
69 line.
We're still working on the deeds and easements, but it is on schedule.
Anybody else have any questions?
You guys are busy, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Public comments. Thomas?
Oh, you told me to talk under the food truck.
Do what?
Under the food truck topic.
Oh, excuse me. I'm out of order. I have been corrected. All right, we'll move on to ordinances.
All right. The first, bill number 2022-13 for second reading, an ordinance to authorize a change in zoning classification for properties along Highway 100 East from industrial I-2 to highway commercial C2.
Any questions, discussion?
I move Bill 2022-13 second.
Motion's been made, I have a second.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. We move to resolution.
Resolution number 1317 would be a resolution to authorize the execution of an extension of the city's transportation agreement with Panhandle Eastern Pipeline Company.
Any questions?
Yeah, can this all be explained?
So, yes, the last agreement we had was for 3 years, and this Panhandle is the pipeline, this eastern pipeline that carries all of our gas, and so this is a very, very important agreement, and our consultant, Ron Reagan, recommended renewing it for 3 years. It's how we get our gas to us.
And is this the company that charged us so much money for gas? When we had the polar vortex?
Well, not directly.
Okay. So I know that we talked about the polar vortex and everything, but is there still like a lawsuit or people working on getting some of that money?
Yes, it's confidential. We're not supposed to, they don't give us a lot of details about it except to say that it's ongoing.
Okay.
Yes, Ron Reagan is really disappointed that this was not resolved, just really more cut and dry, because he kept using the word price gouging. That was pretty evident to him. But you know how things get tangled up in court, and yes, we are still hopeful to get something.
Move to approve.
Motion been made, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Okay, we'll move to old business, and under old business, we're still talking about food trucks. Before we get started on that, we've been spending an awful lot of time on food trucks, and when I was laid up, I had a lot of time to think, and I just, this is just me personally, what I'm about to say, so, I just don't understand why we're really picking on the food truck industry. $1 million liability insurance, we don't make any other business in town. We don't require anybody else to do that. If you're in business, you have liability insurance, otherwise you shouldn't be in business. So I think that's a mute item to force onto somebody because they should be doing it. Food trucks are already here, they've been here for several years. Not a lot of them, but they're here. So now it's a problem. One of the complaints was they don't pay real estate taxes. Well, what we're approving is on private property. If they're on private property, whoever owns that property is paying the real estate taxes. You know, and it's called free enterprise. You know, you want to start a business, you start a business. Yes, you have to go by some rules, I understand that. You know, you want to charge them more for business license and extra fees. And, you know, we have all the antique shows and all the musicians that come to town. We don't charge them extra fees. We don't make them get permits. It's not the same thing, but in a way it is the same thing. I think, again, this is just me. I think it's time to get over it and let the food trucks do business, get a business license, and move forward. So, anyway, that's my comments. So we will open this up to discussion. Anybody up here have anything you want to say first?
I do. I think some of this is safety, and I think that's why we have wanted to pursue it. I agree that proof of liability insurance, $1 million, is a large amount. And in my research, I think maybe $25,000 of coverage would be better. I think we do need to have fees to support our infrastructure. We have clerical fees, we have the police department. I'm wondering if it could be, if you're just gonna do it for 1 or 2 days on a weekend, it should be $25 short-term license, maybe $300 per year. And then if you decide after 1 weekend you wanna do it for a year, that $25 could be credited for that yearly license. I think they should be able to operate without a permit if they're providing catering services as part of a private party with no sales to the general public, but not being able to park on the city streets, parking lot, or other city properties. How far apart should they be from each other? Safety reasons, crowding, what if they have propane or, I don't know, some kind of big barbecue pit, I don't know. Maybe they should be 150 feet from other vendors or existing businesses that offer or sell comparable goods. I don't think, if we talk on regulation C, signs shall be confined to those attached or applied. I don't think sandwich boards should be allowed if they've got their signs attached. If they're not selling prepackaged items, and this is all a question for our health expert back there.
He'll be up there in a minute.
If they're not selling prepackaged items, do they need to have hot and cold water to wash hands, to prep their food, to clean their utensils, and for sanitizing? Ventilation, do they have a hood to take care of grease, odors, and smoke? I think they should be allowed a single piece of external cooking equipment, like if they have a smoker or a grill, so that they can make those smoked or grilled foods. But also, those foods should be prepared and assembled and served from the food truck. And if you figure out 52 weeks, 2 days a weekend, that's 104 days. So if they were charged $300 a year, that's only $2.88 a day of what their license would cost them. And then I'm also looking, when you look at these things, they talk about festival vendors. They define in other towns what festival vendors are. They sell or offer goods for they sell or offer for sale any goods, wares, merchandise, flowers, horticultural products, services, food or beverages from a booth, stall, stand, table, wagon, pushcart, vehicle, or basket. I mean, maybe we need to define that, because some of the businesses in town have said, well, if somebody comes in selling clothes and they park on a private lot and they're selling clothes, I sell clothes, I just think we need to make it fair for everyone. And then also in my research, food truck vendors, it seems like most of them say they shall not vend before 7 a.m. or after 11 p.m. So these are things I've just researched, because I want this to be fair for everyone. And I think we should be able to have food trucks. If we want to have something in the park, have a riverfront park, or the park, or the amphitheater. Let's have some stuff for families. Let's get the families out there so that they can enjoy food trucks and watch a movie, or go to the pool, or play games. It's not that we don't want them, we just want them safe. So I said a whole mouthful, now you guys.
Well, I think the food truck industry is unique, it's something different. It is new to Herman, but I have also seen where Union, Missouri is now drafting a food truck ordinance also, because they are getting more and more food trucks come in, establishing guidelines. Washington has one too. Food truck does offer something different. And from my understanding, the basic fundamentals, I think we agree with from the food truck industry and what we're looking at. My main point is they should have a business license and the health department inspection.
Right.
But to do that, I did turn in that I think we need to look at our business license in general for everybody. Because right now we have one size fits all. And these different cities around I mentioned, their businesses, whether you're a beauty shop, a tavern, a restaurant, a pharmacy, industry, have different license amounts. I dealt with city licenses in my 30-year career with Schwan Food Company. I paid as low as $1,500 to over $800 a year based upon gross sales. And that was just to give me the privilege to deliver to a grocery store, which they resold the product. So I think that we need to look at our ordinance regulating business license in general and include liability insurance in there. I know they should have, but how many actually does? If we expect that of the food trucks, then we need to expect this of all businesses. That's about all I have to say on that.
I think this is very much drafted towards food trucks on private property, which I believe is completely different than a food truck operating on public property. That said, I don't really think we need to. I think a little simpler could be good. I don't really see the reason for us to require the liability insurance. I think that was a good point. I do, right now, the way this is written, is it the food trucks would only be allowed on public property during festivals? Is that right?
With if they follow the
Yeah,
special event
in the
application.
past, like
So,
iFest. and
like what
Oktoberfest.
Susan was saying, I think that's a good point with the parks and stuff, but we would have to change this to allow that currently. And I think that would be a good thing.
In any of our parks, yeah, riverfront park.
I think this would regulate both public and private property. And a question came in my head, but, and I did some research, looked at it. What is, I know private property could be owned by an individual or a group of people, where public property is owned by a city, a government, what have you. But my example is when I, as a customer, park upon the street, walk that 12-foot city right-of-way, the sidewalk, and walk into the front door of that business, I'm now on private property, once I go in that door. But that business is required to have a license. So therefore, we are regulating private property to have licenses. And our business license, the reason I said we should regulate that, our current code allows only one location. And there was an example given, if they set up at 400 Market Street but want to move to 500 Market Street, by ordinance, that's not allowed. So our ordinance stipulates one location per business license. And I've researched the other cities, and their licenses are the same, except some of them go on 2% of annual gross sales for the cost of the license.
Dave, you have anything?
Just try to keep it simple as possible, guys. I mean,
if we want the business, we can't make it too complicated. I understand there has to be regulation, and I'm not against that at all. There has to be some regulation. But try to keep it as simple as possible.
Okay. Now we'll let Thomas come up. Thomas is with the Health Department.
Hello there, Thomas Becker, Gaston County Health Department. I'm the Environmental Public Health Specialist and the Emergency Planner for the Health Department. So I heard you all talking about food trucks. How's that going?
You see it, you hear it.
I'm really happy that you guys are talking about the inspection process. That's really what I am bogged down with. Simply tracking food trucks coming in. Like today, I finally was able to get a hold of Daddy-O's cheesesteaks, and I finally scheduled an inspection for them because every time I'd hear about them, I'd be on my way out of town after work was over. I drive by, there's that yellow truck. So, but yeah, any questions you have for me?
So when you, through the Health Department, if a food truck comes to our town, is that every time they're here you have to inspect them? Is that an annual inspection? Is that a semi-annual or?
It depends on their priority. So priority is determined on like the size of their business, the people they serve. So whether you serve elderly or the vulnerable, that increases your priority. And priority is low, medium, high. Low priority, that's once a year. Medium priority is 9 months, and high priority is every 6 months. Right now, there's a hiatus in from the state health department saying that we can do high priority cases once a year because of the COVID pandemic. So,
If we were to require an inspection of yours in order to give somebody a license, what kind of lead time do you need in order to provide that inspection?
so the inspection process, it can be began if any, here, you might pass this up. This is a sample of the first page of what our inspection form looks like. And you'll see at the top right, there'll be my name, and then underneath it, it'll say service type, frequency, follow-up inspection, regular inspection, and priority. The priority is how you can tell whether or not someone needs an inspection. Now at the bottom of this form, at the very bottom, you don't see it now because I covered it up in order to get this blank sheet out essentially. It will tell you exactly when it was printed and the inspection time. It also states that up at the top as well. So you can tell whether or not someone is out of inspection date. And if it's at that time, you can deny them a food permit and tell them to get in contact with me. And then as soon as I have the inspection done, they can provide that to you.
Is this something they need to display on their truck?
Not necessarily, but we do request them to keep it for their records.
So these food trucks that are coming in, is it an aspect of them where they're coming from being inspected? If they were to show that to you, does that cover that, or do you need a specific Gascony County?
We like to see our own. Now, around the counties around us, for example, Franklin County has a much stricter food code than Gascony County does. So I'm not necessarily too worried about the people that come from Franklin. However, I'm not so certain about Osage County, for example. Their food code could be very similar to ours, where we just go by the strict state food code and no improvements on our own ordinances.
So do they have to have hot and cold water to keep their things clean if they're cooking?
Right now, they're classified underneath something like a temporary food event. And I also have this as well. So for any temporary food events that go on in the county, these are some of the requirements. Granted, this isn't a brochure from DHSS, and it didn't print out that well. So,
So we can go to the website?
yes, DHSS has a copy of this form. And this is all of the temporary food events that anyone holds. This is the stuff that you're supposed to have on hand at all times. And hot and cold water is one of those issues.
What about ventilation? Do they need ventilation if they're cooking?
Typically, there's ventilation installed inside.
But do they have to have it?
I do not know that, and I'll have to double check.
And is it, I got one. Is it okay if they have external cooking, like if they have a smoker or a grill out there?
We would like it to be enclosed simply because of bugs.
Yeah.
But if you can guarantee that, if they set up, for example, a temporary tent and then just had mosquito netting around it to help keep out any outside pests, that would be the best for us. Because that's what we require of businesses. If you cook outside, you need to have something that prevents the elements or pests from getting into food.
You know, David, to ask you, and I didn't quite apprehend, so say I have a food truck and I want to come in Herman on the 19th of March to set up, I have my city license, and how much time do you need to perform a inspection? If I hadn't been inspected previously?
If it's a brand new inspection with new applications and that stuff, it would probably take me 1 to 2 hours to do. So if I'm not exactly that busy at the moment, and you're able to come to the office, and I had an extra hour, I could probably get it done within an hour. But if I'm busy, it could be 2-3 days. It just depends. For example, right now I'm working on a lot of lodging, and lodging's taking up a lot of my time, simply because state wanted to move up the lodging, or the initial lodging inspections are due March 31st for the first one. So I have to get all those done at the moment. So it could be different within the next 2 weeks, but then after that, I could have freer time.
So if I was to pull in Saturday morning at 8 o'clock, want to set up, could I get inspected so I could sell that day?
If,
That's why I'm just wondering, could you maybe be bombarded with several trucks?
well, hopefully it wouldn't get to that point, simply because before the inspection, or before the inspection would be required on the like temporary food permit or something for the city, you guys would be able to see that last inspection form. You'd have them provide that from their paperwork and note if it's within 6 months or if it's outside of 6 months. That way they can then say, oh, I'm outside of 6 months. I need to contact the health department. So that way, if I'm needed to, yes, I'll respond. I'm on call pretty well every day, every hour of the day. For example, if a food truck or a diesel truck filled with food was to, bump something out on the Highway 19 there, I would be required to go and look at it to make sure that all the food there would be safe.
So is the state giving any thought to this about making more of a uniform code where the traveling could be accepted?
The state's a little tough to read at most of the time, but as far as food code goes, no, not that I know of. I haven't heard any movement on it. I haven't heard any movement on the state food, lodging, or sewage code either. So
You would think it'd be really beneficial for these businesses if they could have one.
You're talking about honoring an inspection from another county?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would.
But we also don't require them to pay us for our inspections, unlike Franklin County. Every time Franklin County comes up to an inspection, there is a fee. We do not.
So what you're telling us is that whenever a food truck comes to town, that if they haven't contacted you, they need to contact you to be inspected.
Yes,
Am I understanding that correct?
yes.
What about a Schwann's truck or say an ice cream truck came to town or,
It's not prepared food.
that's true, it's prepackaged.
Yeah,
Never mind.
prepackaged.
So what you need for us is just a list of the food trucks that will be here and what time they will be here.
That'd be great.
With the contact information, so.
Yep. So I can get them all in the
Before
system.
they- Because I can see My Fest morning, 3 of them sitting there, and you're not available, and everybody going,
Yep.
Well, they'll be right in front of the building.
well, I know, but I'm just saying.
And then typically on the festivals, I'm actually here on Saturdays. I usually make it a point to be here for festivals just in case someone wants to come up and I can walk around the town in order to check things out.
Okay.
I was here last My Fest. Unfortunately, it was a COVID and rainy mess, so we didn't really have that much.
All right.
Now, we discussed earlier about private property, public property, regardless, they need that inspection,
Yes.
correct? I do have a thought process, I know you're busy and you covered the county, but to assist with those, and totally your choice, but in order to help you, could the city health department help you and do a temporary inspection until you could get to them? Our city health department is the Board of Aldermen. per
Oh, I was gonna say.
I didn't hear about the city health department.
I'm just, because you're spread, and if we got somebody comes in and we have a delegate that would go down and follow your protocols,
I
Should
would-
already do it until you've got.
I would actually have to get in contact with my state contact on that, simply because I don't know. If that was to be a thing, I would have to train them, for sure. We'd have to go on a couple of rounds around restaurants in town, and the other thing, take them through the exact
That makes
inspection
sense.
process. So, if that was to be allowed, and I don't know.
I was just thinking that may expedite the.
Now, my administrator does live here in Harmon, and I'm slowly training her on this, because we're supposed to have 2 people to be able to cover the jobs. So she's slowly learning my job, so.
Okay, is there any other questions?
Trish, does Corey need this stuff too, for records?
Yes.
Oh.
And I will take one of the inspections first.
Thanks.
Put your bag.
If there's no other questions, I want to thank you for coming to our meeting and enlightening us.
Thank you, Tom.
Yeah, no problem.
Thank you.
I gave you all my cards, so if you have anything, you have questions or concerns, I'm always available to call.
All right, thank you so much.
Have a good day.
Mike Sloan, did you want to speak at all?
No comments.
No comment, okay. Okay, so now that you've heard all that, what is your pleasure to move forward, or what do you all want to do with this ordinance? Or do you want to do anything with this ordinance?
I'd like to move forward and have Dave work on some more suggestions.
Yeah, I agree with Susan. I think it's something we should get together with. I believe Lampkin's attorney has worked with Dave already, and we want to make sure it's fair for all parties. And I think we need to move forward with some type of regulations and to keep uniform, whether public or private property.
Okay. Okay, Dave, if you want to consult with the Lampkin attorney and try and work something out, that's,
Yeah, and I've got everybody's comments, both that, from the meeting, obviously, and some sent to me, so we
you know
can
my
do that.
comments, so.
But
can, yeah, roger that.
one thing I did note on here was on page 3, item F, we're talking about 4 feet unobstructed sidewalk to remain open to follow the ADA regulation. I think we should follow that to a 5 foot. That's what we require of others in town.
All right. We will move on. Is there any other old business? Any new business?
I have some. We talked last year when we were working on the budget about seeing about coming into this century with our billing and HR and direct deposit and payroll, automating all that and not doing all this DOS stuff yet. I really think that if we do it, I know it's gonna be hard at first because working at the hospital, we've changed medical record systems 3 times. It's hard, but it can be done. And at the end of that conversion, it's gonna save man hours, supply cost, ink, paper, all those things. So I'd really like us to get with that so that people can have automatic deposit on their payrolls and.
We
less
are
paper.
working on, Tammy Ellis, the finance clerk, will be working on that in short order. We can actually do that already with our current software. It's a new feature, so we can get that accomplished without doing anything different.
But are we gonna look at newer stuff instead of using DOS?
Yes, we will eventually, yes, we definitely need to upgrade at some point in the not so distant future. It's gonna be costly, but
Yeah.
Anything else? We'll move on to motions. Have a motion to approve the minutes.
I move to approve the minutes.
Second?
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Invoices for payments.
Move we pay the bill.
Have a motion to pay the bills. Do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
So carried. Appoint Patrick Kratz to the Board of Adjustment.
I move to to approve, Patrick.
Second.
Motion's made and second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Conditional use permit renewals, there's a whole list of them, I'm not going to read all the way through that.
Move to approve.
Motion's been made, and before we make a motion, the zoning inspector wanted to make a comment. I'm sorry, I almost forgot about him.
Okay. The reason that I am making this comment, as you know, I've been trying to get people to get in compliance with the off-street parking. You have two of them here that are not in compliance. And I'd like to have it on record that they have until 2023, which is what I said on everybody else, to get in compliance or the conditional use permit is not acceptable.
Not a problem.
Other than that, they're good to go. If you want to know who they are, I can give you that.
How about after the meeting if we want to do
Okay,
that, so we
that's
don't
fine.
make them public?
Corey already knows, I talked to Corey last week about it, but I do think it needs to go on record that that's a condition for them to be renewed. Thank you.
Do all of these have,
Yeah, the first,
do they have people that take care of them? if they don't?
Managers, yes.
Managers, yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
yes.
Okay.
If they're outside the 10-mile radius. Yes, they do.
Okay, thank you, Bob. Okay, now,
With the stipulation voiced by our ordinance enforcement officer, Robert Sutton, move to approve.
thank you.
I'll second that.
Motion made and seconded, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Conditional use permit renewals for outdoor liquor consumption for Fernwell Distilling Company, Andrew Weiss, 64 Schiller Street, Tin Mill Restaurant, Jim Tierberg at 315 East First Street.
I move to approve.
Motion's been made, second.
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Outdoor seating permit renewal for the Herman Worst House, Mike Sloan, 234 East First Street. Have a motion?
I do have something to comment on that. I know there's a handwritten note on this conditional use permit that in September of last year, we did include outdoor music, but that was granted a time frame as a test. And I know Mr. Sloan went above and beyond, and he made sure that the ADA was not blocked and didn't get rowdy, because our outdoor seating ordinance does not allow outdoor music. I think if we need to look at it, if we need to stipulate that he has a conditional use just for the music is separate than anybody has outdoor music, outdoor seating. Because if we apply it to one, then we pretty much have to apply it across the board.
Can I address that?
Yes?
So in my packet that I gave you, I did not address that outdoor music because I have none planned for 2022. And I also understand that if I do decide to do that, I come back to you, ask for authorization, then I come back before this board, just like I did in other years, and try to get that. But as of right now, for 2022, I have none planned. But I'll have to keep that option open. Like I said, I would come back and present that to the board if I go that route.
Very good, thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mike. Good job. I was just noticing on here the handwritten note that it was amended to include it. There's not no detailed general specifics there. But you did a great job when you tried it.
Okay,
Okay. Mike understands they don't need to come back if he wants live music. Other than that, I move to approve the outdoor seating application.
motion's been made, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Approve CTM distribution for rack card distribution for the tourism department.
And that's going to go like in hotels and those towns. I think that's a great idea. I move to approve that.
Motion
Second.
made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Special event application for the Herman Area District Hospital, organized walk various city streets sidewalks, March 26th and 27th.
Move to approve.
Motion been made, do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Special event application for the Herman Lions Club concessions, private property between the Caboose and Tin Mill Restaurant, March 26th and 27th.
Move to approve.
Motion's been made, second.
I'll second.
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. Festival event application for Stonehill Winery vendor shopping event, Stonehill Sherry House, May 21st, 2022.
I move to approve.
Motion's been made, do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? So carried. We have no reports, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion been made, do I have a second?
Second?
Motion made and second, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, everyone, for coming. Have a safe and happy St. Patty's Day.
You do.
I didn't wear my green.
3 years.